Hello everybody, it's Stewart A. Swerdlow.
And Janet Swerdlow.
And this is the Expansions News Podcast for the second week of August 2014.
And we're slipping this in between our breaks for our communication seminar. So we've just returned from the beach where we had a fabulous time communicating.
Yes, wind blown and water was cold and flies were everywhere.
You make it sound like so much fun.
It was so much fun. I especially liked the way they bit my little ankles and feet.
So what's bugging you in your foundation?
Well, let's not discuss that
No?
on camera.
No?
No. But I do have a lot of not a lot of information because we kind of have a bit of a hurry today. But of course, one of the major news stories in the past few days is what is going on in Iraq and Syria and Central Asia specifically, and particularly the group known as ISIS, or I should say the group formerly known as ISIS, which we've spoken about many times, which now call themselves just the Islamic State, or IS.
That's interesting.
Because some of you may know from reading my work and perhaps watching the videos that IS programming, which stands for Intelligence Spectrum, is one of the most brutal programs anyone can have, and it is designed to be life or death situations, and that's exactly what this IS, or Islamic State, is doing in Iraq and Syria.
And I think activating in a lot of people, as we see a lot of people doing very strange things to themselves and or their loved ones.
Yes, and this group has had seized territories in Iraq and Syria. What is not reported too much on the news is that they're now at the Lebanese border and may actually have crossed into eastern Lebanon, and they are also poised at the Saudi Arabian border, where they have threatened the royalty of Saudi Arabia. Now, some of you may have known that there is a minority group in Iraq called the Yazidi, and they have killed, the IS has killed more than 2,000 of these small minority group in Iraq in just one day, and there's not too many of them to begin with. And in Syria, they have taken some of the victims, cut off their heads and stuck them on poles as a warning to those who would oppose them. They had one Christian man forced him to his knees by these militants. They made him convert at gunpoint to Islam, and then they cut his head off. They beheaded him. These IS fighters have seized Iraq's largest hydroelectric dam. The Kurdish, I can't call them rebels, but they really are a large group in the northern part of Iraq that seek to have independence from Iraq, and they are fighting them. The Iraqi forces having difficulty, and so are these Yazidi people, and so the U.S. is now bombing that area. Now, one of the CNN, and I like the comments, they call them experts. We've never even heard of them before, but they're certainly experts, and I'll quote what he said. Al-Qaeda will now want to challenge ISIS' appropriation of its key objectives and tactics. The only way for Al-Qaeda to stay relevant now is through a violent and spectacular attack. And the victims, of course, are the people, not the governments. But here's what I find very interesting, is that the Pope said, it says the Holy Father has strong concerns about the dramatic news in the northern part of Iraq, and he says, and I quote, "Dear brothers and sisters so persecuted, I know how much you are suffering, and I know that everything has been taken from you. I am with you in faith, and with him has conquered evil." Now, let us be reminded that during the Crusades, it was the Pope who ordered the death of the Muslims. So we have to take that with a grain of salt.
Well, and what kind of aid is he sending other than prayer?
Really nothing.
Right, nothing.
No.
It's a show.
That kind of underneath it all is like, well, if you believe in Jesus, then maybe you'll be saved. Because, according to this report, an entire religion is being exterminated from the face of the earth, and it is a genocide. The Yazidis, which are of Kurdish descent, have a religion which is a combination of Christianity, Judaism, and Zoroastrianism, which is from Persia. or what is now Iraq.
I read about an old Persian religion. I can't remember what it's called.
Zoroastrianism.
No, that's not it. There's
No?
even it was before that when I was doing my world ancient studies. So I bet you that's why they're getting rid of them.
Yeah, the Iraqi, they're calling it the Iraqi Kurdish army, calls themselves the Peshmerga, and they are outgunned by ISIS, and that is why they're being helped by the Americans now. And it says here, if the U.S. decides to help the Kurds, there'll be no guarantee that the Kurds would later use those weapons to further their own interests, meaning that the Kurdish people or the military there would use any help to eventually secede from Iraq and do their own thing.
Which they were talking about in the beginning.
Yes, it says here the Kurdish leadership is permeated by and just as close terms with working relationship with Islamic Revolutionary Guards. And in the past, the Kurds have leaked intelligence to the Iranians, and possibly even weapons. And the United States, this person feels, should accept an offer from the head of the regional government of the Kurds to set up a base in Kurdistan. We also see that ISIS or IS has many enemies in the Arab and Muslim world, which we spoke about last week, because they're afraid of their own terrorist attacks or attacks by their own countries. But now, here again, since the U.S. is bombing these IS locations in the city of Erbil, or around the city of Erbil, which is the so-called capital of Kurdistan, the ISIS said the U.S. is now targeted. Because you attacked us, now we're going to attack you. Of course, Obama says that there will be no more ground troops, just these aerial bombings. However, I feel it is the Arab nations in the area who have a lot to lose who should send troops, like Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, all those countries that are afraid of losing their independence.
It's not our place to go in and help those countries solve their issues. We have enough issues here at home.
Now, let's turn our attention to another hot location, Florida.
That's hot.
It's a little bit of a humorous story.
Humid?
Humid and humorous, because most Floridians know that alligators are found in residential areas in Florida and Louisiana and other places, and they sometimes come onto your property. But this 75-year-old woman last week, she was watching Jeopardy, and she heard 2 knocks on her door, just knocking on her door. And when she opened the door, you know what was there? What? A 6-foot-long alligator on her porch, knocked on her door.
Let me just kind of like banged.
You know what that reminded me of? Remember, I don't know if you watched Saturday Night Live years ago, but I'm sure many of the audience did. Remember they had Land Shark? You know, it was someone dressed like a shark, and he was knocking on the door. It's like, and he would say, you know, delivery, bakery delivery, and I didn't order anything, and they finally said, Land Shark. So this is like Land Shark from Saturday Night Live.
Okay.
And so she called the police, and they went to the pond near her house, and they found a 4-foot alligator in the pond, which was not the 6-foot alligator. So the door-knocking 6-foot alligator is still on the loose in Florida. People, don't answer your door in Florida. It's very dangerous. Now, let's move up north to the Midwest.
Okay.
We know that Illinois was the home of Abraham Lincoln, who supposedly freed the slaves and all that stuff. But in central Illinois, in a library, they found a book that was about racism. And guess who signed it, or who wrote a little blurb in there?
Who?
Abraham Lincoln.
Oh my gosh.
How do you like that one, people? The book is called Types of Mankind. And the author of that book suggested that Africans and Native Americans were fundamentally different from Caucasians, and enslaving them was part of the natural order. Well, you're a Cherokee.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're a slave?
No.
No, I'll tell you, she doesn't feel like that at all. I'll tell you that right now. And according to this information, the way Abraham Lincoln wrote certain letters was very unique to him, so there was no possibility of any forgery. The book was published in 1854 and was distributed all over the Midwest.
Well, you know, Abraham Lincoln had slaves.
And that's what people don't know, that Abraham Lincoln actually did have slaves,
Yes.
and the whole anti-slavery thing was a political ploy on his part.
Yes, and blacks, remember, the first slave owner was actually a black man.
Right.
And that they came across as indentured servants before slavery. So there's a lot of things that are not told in conventional history.
Remember, history is written by the victors.
That's right. So they're just a way to pit white against black, so it shouldn't be that way.
And now just a little bit of a follow-up, which was not popular on any of the news services. You remember a couple of weeks ago I reported about the crash of the Algeria flight from Burkina Faso to Algeria. It crashed in Mali. And they said it had 116 passengers, and then they said 118 passengers. Now they're back to 116 passengers again. But what's interesting is they said the black box is unintelligible.
Why?
Well, according to this information, the aircraft was 18 years old and used magnetic audio tape. And so the tape was broken or crumpled in places and had to be repaired. But still, the pilot's conversations could not be understood.
Well, isn't that convenient?
Very convenient. They said it seemed, according to what they could understand, that it was some kind of simple technical problem. Well, that wouldn't crash a plane. French officials still believe that bad weather was the likely cause, but have not ruled out other explanations. And because of the way the debris was concentrated in one area, they believe it exploded on impact rather than having disintegrated in the air, as originally reported. Well, now it's up to you.
All right, well, I don't have a whole lot of stories either myself, because we're kind
we're in a hurry.
in a bit of a hurry today, but I have some interesting things what I do have.
Okay, I'm sure you do.
So,
I bet I know what they're about. Go ahead.
The first one is about the Rosetta probe. Have you heard about that?
Well, I like probes.
You do?
What kind is that one?
The Rosetta probe. Apparently, it's readying itself to enter orbit around a comet that they call Chury, C-H-U-R-Y for short. And this was launched at a place that we were actually at from French Guiana.
Ah, yes.
The European Space Agency launched it in 1990. Oops, I'm sorry. They started planning in 1990. They actually launched it in 2004. Now it's been in hibernation. It's woken up beginning in January of this year, and apparently it's been approaching Chury ever since. Once they get within the orbit, long story short, they're going to deploy a refrigerator-sized lander called Philae, P-H-I-L-A-E.
And I bet it's filled with cheese and red wine.
Could be, in November. Yeah. And then they said, what's the point of the Rosetta's mission? Now here they say one researcher. This is what's so interesting. They don't even name the researcher here, so we can't say we'd never heard of him before. Quote, the biggest question that we're trying to get an answer to is where did life on Earth come from? It's like, did it start? How did life get going? Was it the building blocks of life that were brought to us from comets?
And I think that's the comet that did it.
Well, I think it's interesting that they're looking in outer space for how life got here on Earth. And they also noted that most comets, they're claiming, consist of material that's believed to be relatively pristine, and therefore they can find valuable insights on the origin and evolution of the solar system, including our own planet.
So now they'll do something to this comet and contaminate it so it won't be so pristine anymore.
Maybe, but what's interesting is they're looking now for how life got to Earth on from other planets, and this is now a comet. Now, following on the heels of that, NASA actually had a panel discussion at the agency's Washington headquarters this past week. And they say, according to this panel, that it's highly unlikely we're alone in the universe.
Duh.
And we may be close to finding alien life. In fact, now they're giving us a time frame. They said they may find it in the next 2 decades.
Wow.
Remember, it used to be, whenever. Now they're giving it a time frame, and a NASA astronomer by the name of Kevin Hand claims, quote, I think in the next 20 years we will find out that we are not alone in the universe. And we have another professor of planetary science named Sarah Sager, quote, who says, astronomers think it is very likely that every single star in our Milky Way galaxy has at least one planet. Sometime in the near future, people will be able to point to a star and say that star has a planet like Earth.
Yeah, a lot of people on drugs do that.
Now, apparently they're going to launch the James Webb Space Telescope in 2018, who will supposedly make spotting these planets extra easier.
Oh, good. I hope they can.
So,
I'd like to spot them much more easily.
Yeah, NASA is also saying that we are not alone and we're going to find life in the next 20 years. So they'll speed that one up. Now, then this was an interesting article I found called Imagining World War III in the year 2034. And
why wait that long?
Well, this is what this article is about, and this was written by a professor, a Russian professor in Vladivostok. And he says if the next world war is to happen, it will most likely be in Asia and feature a clash between the U.S. and the principal challenger of China. And he said there are 3 reasons why it will not happen now.
Okay.
First is because there's a double-digit annual growth in its defense budget. China's military still significantly lags behind the U.S. and will take China 15 to 20 years to attain parity or near parity with the U.S.-Japan allied forces in the East Asian littoral. Okay, that's the first reason. Second reason, for all the talk of mutual interdependence, China actually depends on America much more than America depends on China for its resources.
Really?
So they've got to change that. Then the third reason is that China would have to confront not only the U.S., or they would have to confront not only the U.S., but also America's Asian allies, which at this point include Japan, I don't know why they say this, but Australia.
That's not Asian, is it?
No, and India. So China needs at least one major power ally. So anyway, it's a very lengthy article, which I'm not going to
Russia
go through.
as an ally.
Yes. So anyway, I just think it's interesting. So my point is this a defocus? They're going to say, oh, 2034 is when it's going to happen. So they're defocusing us so they can turn around and do something else.
Well, here's an interesting thing, because
What?
in 2032, we're supposed to have a dangerous passage of Comet Apophis, I think it's called. And so maybe if it destroys the Earth, we won't have to worry about World War III.
Well, there you go, according to this guy.
That's my plan.
Now, something else that's interesting is happening. Remember I told you that they're building another Suez Canal?
Another Suez Canal?
I told you. Oh, no.
Panama
Canal.
Yes.
Because they're building another
But
Panama
it's not
Canal.
in Panama.
And then that's the one through Nicaragua.
Right.
Okay, now,
It's a Nicaragua
I gave my
canal.
story away. Egypt plans to dig a new Suez Canal.
Why?
Well, they said that the old one is 145 years old, and they need one to expand it and expand so they can expand their trade.
Everything in
and
Egypt is like thousands of years old. That's like new.
The fastest shipping route now between Europe and Asia. So I think it's interesting they're doing this in Central America. Now they're bringing this up here in the Middle East. However, they don't say who's building this one. So
Probably the Chinese.
could be with maybe security by the Russians, for all we know, as in the other ones. So I think that's an interesting story. Now, the other thing we've been talking a lot about is sinkholes. These are now opening up in South Korea's capital of Seoul at an alarming rate.
I wonder why.
Why
It's
do
a
you
North
think?
Korean plot.
Could be.
It's Kim Jong-un. He's underneath digging.
But apparently people are getting very disturbed about it. So it's threatening skyscrapers, homes, everything.
Yeah.
So why?
You fall down now. That's what they say.
Then, Africa. Now I think you
I'm not
kind
politically
of...
correct. I'm worse than Joan Rivers.
I think that you had already talked about this briefly in one of
What's
your,
that?
about the continent of Africa actually splitting in two
On the eastern part.
by a giant super plume. Now that's now being
A plume?
reported. They call it a super plume, which is a massive upswelling of molten rock.
I have that in my indigestion sometimes.
And splitting the African tectonic plate in two. So I thought that was kind of interesting news because you've been talking about that for a long time.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of stories left, only 2. Not as exciting as normal, but some specifically with you in mind.
I bet.
The first one was about a woman who was dreaming about filleting fish.
Oh no.
And so she
I
woke
know
up
where this is going.
slicing her husband's neck open.
Oh, not his penis?
Where'd that come
Because
from?
you, usually.
I didn't say a word.
It must be like a site called penis.com and you go on and get all the stories.
I think maybe you know a little too much information.
I think you know a little too much
I
information.
think I better go look up that site and see if it exists.
Go ahead.
And see if you've
I'm
been
sure it must.
See if you've been surfing the web.
Look at my name. My picture's on there.
I'm going to look.
Yeah.
Anyway, do you remember not too long ago, maybe in the last couple of years, there was a woman who was, or maybe it was a man who was suffocating his wife and he claimed he was dreaming about it and he was acquitted of the murder? Do you remember
Yes,
that?
I do. In his sleep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, now she's claiming that she was dreaming of filleting fish and cutting him open.
It's the same
No, it's not the same couple.
I'm
You're a
very
little slow.
confused.
I know, taking you to the beach and giving you that
I
fresh
know,
air.
the flies are biting me.
Next, what is bugging you in your foundation? You got to go there. Anyway, the police really don't believe it. I don't know what will happen, but I think it's interesting. Again, they're bringing up what's happening in the dream
So he's
state.
dead, the husband's dead?
No.
Oh, he's not dead.
No, she didn't manage to kill him.
Oh,
The couple's 16-year-old daughter called the police before she could do that.
that's very nice of her.
Okay, here's one special for you. Want to take a guess about this one?
I can't imagine.
Good. We have a nude political candidate campaigning in Times
I saw
Square.
that, and you know what? He really shouldn't take his clothes off.
Anyway, this is so funny because it said that he's campaigning for the right to be nude in public. Now listen to this. This man's name is George Davis. He spoke out against a 2013 San Francisco public nudity ban introduced by his opponent, drumroll, Scott Wiener.
You can't make this up, people. Only in America.
This gentleman says nudity is a form of expression, and then after he gave the speech, then he conducted the interview stark naked, and then he walked over to an artist who was body painting another naked man. And why we needed to know that, I don't know.
And this was out in the open
in Times Square. Yeah. It says he's been arrested twice for public nudity. So I just thought that was interesting.
And did you see his picture? He should be arrested for public ugliness.
I saw the picture, yes.
Like, put something on, because...
Anyway, that's the end of my stories.
Oh,
However,
thank
if
God.
people come in October,
Oh, yeah.
because we are concluding our seminar today on communication. You can see Stewart is learning and doing so well. Top student.
You didn't say it was good communication. You just said communication.
That's right. An example of what not to be. That was your role.
That would be me.
Anyway, in September, you're going to be in Iceland and Poland. October is our big annual conference. How many years is it anyway? We've been doing this. Do you remember?
12 maybe?
11? Is this our 11?
I think it's more than 11. It's 12.
12. Oh, yeah. Our audience is telling us 12 or 13. So anyway, that will be coming up in October. So we do hope that you will join us because we are doing a fantastic one. This is like going to blow your socks off.
And your mankini,
Yeah,
if you're
wearing one, right? Okay, and it's going to be everything Oversoul and the Alien Agenda.
Yes, which is amazing.
A lot of new information is coming forward that we can't wait to tell you, so we've got to give this one out ASAP.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, we have in January, we have our Hyperspace Oversoul Extravaganza class coming up. Those spaces are filling. If you're interested, you can talk to Patricia as soon as possible. We do have payment plans available. She will make it work for you if you want to come. And you need that class if you want to be a part of our Oversoul Mastermind group, which is where we do some very deep, it's kind of like our think tank, right, for Hyperspace Oversoul people.
Right.
So it's a lot of fun. It's very interesting. Anything else?
No, I think we've just about covered for this week.
We wanted to be a little quicker because we've got things to do. We've got people coming back in a few minutes. Please be sure to go on Facebook and like our fan page.
Especially mine.
Especially Stewart's, of course, because he likes to be...
The pretty one.
Yeah, the pretty one, and he likes to have everything like the best and etc. It makes my life a lot easier, so please vote for Stewart.
It's not easy to be the emperor.
It's not easy.
No.
I'm so happy I don't have that task.
No, you have others.
I have other tasks.
Like looking up
what?
Certain things on the internet.
I want to see what you'll say. I'm not the one with the website here. You're the one with the website. All right. Anything else?
No.
All right.
That's all I got.
That's it. So I guess we'll see you next time.
Bye, people.
Bye.